Hi, I'm Helen Young, WKAR current sports beat reporter. Athletes in Action is a faith-based organization catered to student athletes, and one not many students know about. I got the chance to sit down with Helen Young, an MSU lacrosse player, to discuss faith, sports, and South Africa.
Athletes in Action is a subsidiary of Crew, which is a Christian organization on campus for students. And Athletes in Action is the same thing, but it works with all athletes. So it's open to all athletes at Michigan State, and we learn about how to build a better relationship with God and Jesus, and how He works into our sports life and how we play for Him. We have an opportunity every year to either go on a winter trip with Athletes in Action to South Africa or a spring break trip. The spring break trip includes Johannesburg, the city of Johannesburg, and Cape Town, and the winter trip concludes more of just Cape Town, and it's more working with children and working at sports camps, and we work with college students more in the one I went to over spring break. And we'd go to talk to people, and they'd just be sitting around, and we'd be like, hey, talk to us about your faith, what's going on. And literally that's how it went. And it sounds really weird and kind of stupid, but people were very open to talking to us exactly what their faith was about. Because we got there, and they worship the same God we do, halfway across the world. We're still worshiping the same God we do, and being able to use the platform of sports to really reach people that otherwise wouldn't be able to be reached spiritually. So basically we started Athletes in Action at a completely new campus for Athletes in Action. So Tishwani Institute of Technology, which I have a little lanyard. You asked me to bring some things. This is always on my backpack, but this is a lanyard from there. And they basically have never had an Athletes in Action before, but they have Christian athletes there on campus. But they needed somebody to kind of organize this, I don't want to call it a movement, but it is a movement, organize an Athletes in Action there. And so they had a woman who was in charge. She manages all of the teams. Her name was Magda, and she basically had been praying for something like us, some people like us to come and build this Athletes in Action, start it up, get the spark going, and get students interested. And so she'd been praying for us for about 11 years now, and that's crazy. I always thought what was I doing 11 years ago? Just absolutely nothing. So we ended up playing with these kids while we were there, and then we went into the church and they talked to us about really what they do there. And one of the things that they do is they run a soccer program. So it's a soccer team ultimately, and they work with these gangsters from anywhere from the ages of 15 to the ages of 22, 23 to 20, I guess 25 probably too. And they work with them, and they work with them on soccer skills. And the only way they can play on the team is if they're clean. So if they're clean from drugs, if they're clean from alcohol, if they're doing what they're supposed to do, not getting in trouble, they can play on the soccer team. So they're using the platform of sports to both share God's love and also keep them clean and keep them on the right path. And it's amazing how these gangsters will do anything to play soccer. We went for this trip for ultimately, college ministry. College ministry was the number one. We're pouring into two colleges, University of Johannesburg and TUT, Tishwani Institute of Technology. And then we went to Cape Town and poured into children as well. And that was just the contrast to that is it's very cool. I mean, it's cool, but it's really heartbreaking as well. So.
Wow, what an amazing story. Young said if she ever goes back to South Africa, it'll be because God calls her to do so. For WKAR Current Sports, I'm Laura Young on the campus of Michigan State.